Hi, welcome to the School Community Huddle with Ana Martinez. Today we have a very special guest, Gina Gibson. Gina, and she's coming all the way from Philadelphia, y'all. So thank you for being here. I know it's a time difference. Welcome to my virtual office.
I love the virtual office.
I wanted to get a little fancy. One of my episodes was a teacher teaching me how to use the virtual background. So now I know how to use it.
Are you into the whole Bitmoji? And Bitmoji is a little fancy for me, but I want to get there.
I'm getting there. I'm not getting there. So Gina, tell me a little bit about yourself and about the organization that you founded, right? And that you are leading right now.
Well, Anna, thank you for having me. I am a Philly girl at heart, born and raised. I'm a public school girl at heart, born and raised K through 12, from Southwest Philadelphia. And I love to begin telling my story to people that I was not the model student. I was always super smart, but I was super lazy and I was a super social person, right? So I had straight A's in socialism. Okay, socialization, I had that down. And I come from a family, very huge family. My parents are 7 people. My mom's the baby of 10. My dad's the second oldest of 13. And I didn't have any aunts and uncles that were college educated. So I am definitely a first gen. My dad grew up on a farm, had to stop going to school because he was required to work the farm a certain amount of days a week. But I had parents that pushed us to go to college because they wanted more. And an upper bound program at Drexel University in Philadelphia changed my life. It changed my life. It had a significant effect on me as far as getting me prepared for college. But as I got older and I made that transition through college, it was so beneficial when it came to the educational part. I mean, hands down, touring schools. But as a little Black girl, leaving Philadelphia, going 12 hours away from home to school in Atlanta, Georgia, the social part I did not have down. I was 17. My birthday's not till December. The financial part, I don't think my parents and I quite got or understand. And so just over the years, I'm sure it's happened to you, Anna, when we come from our communities, if we've made certain strides, people are always pulling you. Can you talk to my niece? Can you talk to my nephew? Can you talk to my son, my daughter, whoever? And those conversations just led me. I'm a very community service driven person. And it really, Make Your Name Great started out is just kind of, well, how do I find a way to give back and do something I want to do? And so our purpose is assisting minority high school students for the educational, social, and financial responsibilities of higher education to aid in their successful completion, because it's just not about a classroom. And I think when I was coming up, I started high school in the late 80s, you had such a big push for college, but not such a big push to talk about the finances and to talk about the socialization part, right? And what those changes would be. And so within Make Your Name Great, I developed something called Life Skill University because I was reading a study maybe sometime around 2013. I think the organization was called maybe A Piece of Pie, something of that. And it found that minority students, specifically African-American students, Latin Hispanic students, right, did not finish because of underdeveloped life skills, right? So that's as simple as asking for help, time management, understanding diversity. You come from a neighborhood that looks like you, schools that look like you, and now you go to these schools and you're 2%, right? I started and I was a corporate girl. I mean, I went to law school. I was in a corporate legal department. And like I said, it was kind of like my thing on the side that I did. And one day woke up, almost 40, like I'm super burnt out from corporate America. This is my life. This is my passion. I am a youth advocate. And when I leave here, I want my tombstone to say that I helped send hundreds of thousands of our babies to school. So that's a little about me.
Wow, that's great.
So our signature program is called Summer Academy. So Summer Academy is a 1-week, 5-day, pretty much half day, 9 to 12, considered like a boot camp. And we try to partner with, in Philadelphia, Villanova University is our partner organization. And so the representatives from Villanova come in to talk about those college topics like understanding financial aid, residential and dormitory life, athletics, study abroad, because a lot of Make Your Name Great are things that I found that my mom and dad and I, we did really, really well. And some things we did really, really horribly, right? Because we didn't know. And how do I push that, forward? And then the other half of it is the life skills. So it's just professionals from the community. And we dive into everything from networking to public speaking, understanding diversity. About 2 or 3 years ago, we added social and emotional wellness, right? Because we need to talk about that with our students, because we're seeing a rise in minorities, young teen minorities, with suicide and attempted suicides. And so how do we, start conversations around those things? And so I started off actually in Atlanta. I was living in Atlanta with the summer program, brought it back to Philly because, of course, that was my home. And then in 2015, we started something called the Summer Academy Tour, where we were in different cities. So Atlanta, Philadelphia, San Francisco, Los Angeles, and Dothan, Alabama. And the cities that we're consistent in, though, are Atlanta, Philly, and San Francisco, because we've built a partnership with an organization called Young Community Developers. And so as we keep growing, it's kind of just finding the need. And as we grow, dipping into different cities. And so for summer 2021, we have our sights set on Baltimore, the DMV area, Washington, D.C. So Summer Academy is our top program. And then I would say our second top program is what we call our senior boot camp. So we follow the national application deadline. So once we've had Summer Academy in Philly in July, from August to November, we have a mentoring program where I pair a mentor with one of our seniors, and they have like a check-in once a week. So they help, because we're trying to teach our students independence. So they create goals of what they're going to do. So when they come out of Summer Academy, I've gone through them like, this is the timeline. We need to create the things that you need to get done to get these applications in the mail by November. And if they want it, because we don't force things on them, because you know how busy our professionals are, and we want it to be beneficial on both ends. They get assigned that mentor, check in with the mentor once a week, setting goals, meet this goal, meet these 3 goals, set goals for the next week, and it'll take them through to the end of the process once they drop the applications in the mail. Have different programs, right, that I represent for. One is like a FAFSA completion. So a high school counselor or principal can reach out. They want a FAFSA, because we've all been certified as FAFSA completion coaches. And so how do you now get a FAFSA completion coach in your school to help you with the FAFSA application process? And a lot of times it comes out of where my students come from, how the relationships build. So let's say I had 30 students in Summer Academy Philadelphia. Maybe 8 or 9 of them came from one particular high school. Most times I reach out to somebody at the high school, let them know they've been there. How can I support you? This is what we're going to have going on. And I do want to say this, Anna, because there's not always a pretty side to it, right? The help is not often accepted, right? And I get it, because someone clued me into something a few years ago that I literally wanted to make me cry. I was at a conference or professional development for Philadelphia College Roundtable, and a college counselor was on a panel and said that college prep was not in their job description. A high school counselor, said college prep was not in their high school job description. And I thought, wow. That's right? Because they said they're focused on truancy, attendance, the whole, social issues and, different welfare issues connected to the families and the children and whatever they had going on. I was blown away.
Well, let's talk about that. I think that especially in schools where the rate of poverty is higher, and
what we're talking about,
higher, that educators, and if you're an educator, your mindset is everything. I know you hear that often. And
yes.
Maybe you're not the educator that says, well, not me. Or maybe you are inundated with attendance and truancy, but you want to focus on college.
Because it is a lot. Let's be clear. You know how these schools are. It is a lot. So the schools that don't need it are the schools that reach out to me. They have a college prep person identified on on staff, they also have it built into the curriculum. So that like you're working with your English teacher to do your college essays and things of that nature. And those are the ones that call me all the time. Right. And it's like, you know, and I get it because I think there's also what I wish we could talk about more. It's this tug of war too, right? People feeling like you're coming in to step on their toes. You're coming in to shine on something that they're not doing or what they're in that. And I live by the village concept. You know, it takes a village. I'm part of the village. I'm standing alongside of you, helping you because, hey, I know that you're world. We had a big thing in Philadelphia years ago where there was a significant amount of school counselors and school nurses that were laid off. And it was really heavy. I mean, you had school counselors supporting 4 or 5 schools. And, you know, that's impossible to do and do well.
I know that I was a school principal and a middle school assistant principal and dean for many.
You say middle school? Okay, bow down. I bow down in honor to every middle school educator and administrator. I'm not built for it, Anna. I'm not built for it.
A lot of people
I'm not built for it. That's a special calling. So all praises.
Well, what I was gonna say was that the amount of resources that, like, because I worked in the inner city of Los Angeles, and so we had one counselor, or we have one person that is doing all the college, or mental health counseling. I'm not talking
yes.
Right? Because our counselors are sometimes used to do some behavioral support, some IEP support, some just like making sure home supports are in order.
Yeah.
If you are a district leader, a system leader, if you're running for board, we need more resources in the inner city, schools and high schools and elementary schools if we're going to get our students to and through college, right? Like it just, the resources are so thin, and counselors or mental health counselors are spending more of their time just making sure kids are at school, truancy. And you're right. Like maybe that one counselor was like, that's not in my job description because this is what I have to do. But there's other well-meaning counselors that want to do it.
Right.
Can't find the time, right? Because
and then it's finding what fits too. I'm an advocate for college, right? But I'm also a advocate for what makes sense, right? And so if you're in a school and what's better suited for the school is a career development track, right? So anything from like, we're heavy unionized in Philadelphia. So if it's partnering with a local union, right, and having an apprenticeship or a program there, like I know it's ideal and college sounds nice and fancy and wonderful. It's not for everybody, right? And people are still going to be successful and do amazing things. So I think sometimes in that we don't assess the need, and you know how it is. You put this program in place, we waste tens of thousands of dollars on something that you knew, if you just looked at the data, wasn't going to make sense in the beginning. How are you going to have college prep for a school that's only graduating 27% of the senior class? I mean, I'm not saying that they're not students there who don't deserve it, but maybe we can pair them up with other outside programs they can go to. But if you know that only 27% of these seniors are graduating, why are we not then putting something in place for career development and getting them on track then, Well,
this is also how systematic racism works. For people who don't believe systematic racism exists or institutional or structural racism, this is it. Yeah. 27% of your seniors are graduating. Me as the principal or a district leader, I'm going to look at the school. What's the quality of the teachers? What's the quality of the curriculum? What's your attendance rate? Like, what else is happening? Because I'm not just going to create a career track and stop there. I want to get my students to and through college, and I want them to have choices.
Yes. You want them to have options, but develop programs that make sense for what all of it is, right?
And so typically in schools like that, if we do not have enough funding to give them more mental health counselors, more resources like food, like making sure kids are coming to school, like we don't know what kids are holding in their households. So we need more people that are going to support that social emotional component. Institutional structural racism works like that. Funding comes from the community. If the community is poor, then that is translating to a school that's going to get poor resources. Now, some people are like, but there's grants, there's Title I, there's Title III, there's all these other titles. Okay, so Title I is for 99% free and reduced lunch, right? Or Title III for like, I think that's for the EL multi-language learners. Like that's just more costly, right? And then you also have to make sure teachers know how to do that. I once had a person give me a testimony that a college counselor, she was an immigrant who didn't have her citizenship and had straight A's, was going to go to a college track, but her counselor didn't know how to help her as an undocumented student. Right. So the counselor ended up calling INS to ask for support and putting giving the phone to this high school student to talk to INS, and the high school student, something was like, something's not right here. I don't want to give them my information. Because then the INS started saying, like, why are you in this country? What happened? What's going on? So
who would do that, Anna?
Well, it tells me, Gina, that your organization is born because we do not have the right supports in our schools, or well-meaning people don't actually know all the laws that are affecting our kids in schools today.
Right. Wow. Right? Wow.
So you
that really blew me away. Like,
yeah,
I get it. What you're trying to say is people do have good intentions, but if you're not, I'm on the cuff, right? Because sometimes I do think people have good intentions, and sometimes I don't think people have good intentions, and that's the part right there, because our student and their well-being, right, should be what's most important. And it's about, and I think sometimes as adults, we don't reflect enough that it's okay for us not to know. I tell people that, because we have to lead by example for our students and the young people we serve. Like, I don't know, but I'll try to defer to someone who does know. And sometimes it's about asking your intimate network first, right? Like those people that you trust, those confidants, getting some information, because a lot of times that's how I learn things. It gets passed on information, simple networking, simple conversation. But that's why our students clam up. When I do summer academy in San Francisco, that's a hot topic, right? About undocumented students. And it wasn't something I was very versed in. And so I had to really look at it. I had to talk to people there. I had to get information, because it wasn't a lot of what I was running into in my other cities, but it really was in California, out there. And it's like learning and giving them information that helps, because a lot of them are scared and they need advocates. They need advocates that are going to help them understand. And so I preach this all the time. Like, everybody has to identify, like, what is your support circle? Like, what is your support circle? And that's important for educators too, because I don't think educators identify what their support circle is, and they're burning out. They're burning out daily. All of us need mentors. I don't care how old you are. Everybody needs somebody that's done it well, or that you can refer to. And you just need a team of people around you. Now, listen, let me clarify that. You don't need a ton of people around you that are complaining and down, and it's just like the complaint group, but a ton of people around you that want to see better. Candace is somebody in my support circle, right? We have the same passions, right? And that's very important for educators.
And I love that. And I love the fact that, one, if you are a district, because 60% of our public school teachers are white, and over 65% of our students in public schools are students of color, I think, right? I think the statistics are something.
Yeah, you're almost spot on. Yeah.
And so if that's the case, and you're at a school that you're like, no, we have college access and this and that, but your numbers for Black and brown students are disproportionate, then reach out to Gina, make your name great. Reach out to her for that 12%, because that 12% is not getting to and through college. And there's something about mirrors, right? Like, when a student sees someone that looks like them, if I, as a high school student, saw another Latina that was
so important. Yes.
It creates an understanding in your brain.
It's attainable. It's touch. You can touch it. You can see it. It's a true story. When I went to a college prep high school in Philly, I went to a large high school called Bartram, but I went to an annex called Bartram Motivation Center, was on track for college students, very small senior class, maybe 60 students of the 400 class, because of the other annexes. And this is very true. I'm in Upper Bound. I told you, Anna, I wasn't a super great student, and it's like around the end of 11th grade, I'm like, I think I really need to kick this thing up, right? So we had to have one-on-ones with our school counselor, who did not look like me, And I go in for my one-on-one in like September. She's showing us what our rankings are in the class. And I think my ranking, maybe I'm throwing some number out, maybe it was 240 out of 427. And I never had a dream of anything besides being a lawyer from the third grade. Never had another goal, nothing else I wanted to do whatsoever. And her exact words to me when I went in there, when she was like, you had to fill out a questionnaire, what you were applying for doing. And I'm like, pre-law. And she was like, well, I don't think pre-law is suited well for you. And I was like, why? And she said, because when you graduate from college, you want to be able to say that you're something. And you can't graduate from college and say, hey, I'm a pre-law. You should major in early childhood education, because when you graduate, you can say, I'm a teacher, right? Now, Anna, I'm 16 at the time. I told you my parents didn't go to school. My dad didn't graduate from high school. And I was like, oh, I never really thought about doing that. Like, and she was like, yeah, that'll be better for you. That'll help you to be successful, because basically she was telling me you don't want to do something where it might not help you be successful. And I felt so small. I quenched so small. And I never said anything to my mom and dad. I just thought, she's in college. She's in the high school. She's the counselor. She knows about college. She goes to college. And I changed it on all my applications. And one day I was leisurely telling my best friend a story. And her mother overheard me. And her mother was like, she said, what? Did you tell Becky? How dare? And I was just like, what? And I'm like, no, please don't make a big deal. Like, don't tell my mom. I'm still like, no, it's not a big deal. It's not a big deal. I get to school. Rest in peace, a brother that passed of sickle cell was from Jersey. He was one of the new student orientation guides, and he's asking me what I was majoring at. And I told him that bull crap, that she told me. He was like, what are you talking about? No one graduates from college and are what they are. He's like, what do you want to do? And I was like, I really want to go to law school. And he was like, we have one of the best pre-law programs in the AUC. And I changed it that day. And what you just said, he looks like me, Anna. He looks like me. He was already in college. He was doing, and it hit differently. But if you don't have those little guides and angels, so to speak, to come along your path, she could have killed my spirit that day, and I could have never gotten it back, right?
Yeah, and that happens to a lot of students.
Yes.
And like, I know that people in schools never say, like, I'm going to be a gatekeeper for kids of color. But if you don't check your bias, if you don't look at your the stance, then you might be inherent, like, just implicitly doing that. Because I also had a counselor in high school, and then I also had a counselor in middle school who I wanted to be in the honors classes, and the same thing, like, I don't know if you want to be in those. They're really hard classes. Like, I don't think that. And then they made me be on a contract, and I was like, well, why don't we just try it out?
A contract?
Try it out. And she was like, well, then I'll put you on a contract. If you get any lower than a B, then we're going to have you removed. So luckily, like, my dad and my mom taught me to advocate for myself at a young age. And I was like, well, why don't we just try it? Like, why don't we? Because I'm thinking now, any other kid would have been like, all right, that's fine. Like, put me in the easier class, I guess. Or if it's
at that age, I would have. I can tell you, I would have.
So if you're a parent, make sure you're talking to your child. If you're an educator and you know kids, talk to them. Prepare their mindset, because they don't realize that kids of color get so many messages along the way that are like, no, that might be too hard for you. Oh, I don't think so. Or maybe try this. It's easier. And well-intentioned people might do this, or sometimes people with really bad intentions might do it. So I love that your company is about, let me give you the information that gets in the way. That it's tedious. It's tedious to fill out.
It is. Because no one's, when you go on a college tour, no one is, if you're at there are some schools, I celebrate them. They have amazing college prep tracks, right? But for a lot of the schools that I service, people are not telling you and digging into it. When you go to a college, they don't want to tell you about what the date rate numbers are. They don't want to tell you about how many people they graduate from this program are placed in job? What's your job placement rate? Like, these are the things I'm teaching my students is, what kind of issues do you all have on campus with regards to racism, with regards to, are there organizations that I can join as a person of color coming to a PWI? Like, those are the things that I'm like pushing forward with them, because people don't, again, people with good intentions, they are trying to get these students in school, but these are the things we need to stay in school and to stay. I don't want you just to go to school. I don't take pride in just saying they went to college. I want you to finish. I want you to finish. And that's why the life skill development, even for educators that are looking, those small things that you say to your students just about life, you know, use the textbook if you have to use the textbook, but relate it to life. You know, there's always a way to relate life skill development into the lesson. I don't care if you're talking about science, math, or social studies, right? To help push things forward that they need. Everything from, like you said, asking help, you know, diversity, letting students find their voice, right? Because those are the things that get lost. And a lot of times people don't ask for help to the 23rd hour. And it's, what can we do? We're in the 23rd hour, you know?
So I love that your organization helps. I love that they do all the tedious stuff, but then also the things that nobody thinks about, like the social stuff, the integration stuff, the culture shock stuff that really is real, and navigating a college, especially a public college that is just large. So I'm just wondering, for my final question, like, because there's still a lot of people that see an organization like yours and they're like, well, that's not fair. There's a lot of other high school students that need that. Why are we helping minorities only? Why are we helping Black and brown? And so I'm thinking about, Gina, for the final question, like, what would be at risk if we don't help our Black and brown students right now? If we do not have this level of urgency for our Black and brown high school students, what could happen if we're not?
Don't get an Anna Martinez and a Gina Gibson, period. We don't get an Anna Martinez and a Gina Gibson, because if we just, it's almost like a fire of anger and extreme heaviness of sadness. Because if you actually watch the news right now and try to turn a blind eye to what's happening and the images, let's just think about our educators who may be watching that are teaching K-5 students. You know that what they attach their eyes to at that young, impressionable age itself, it is defining who they are, right? Because their voices have not become strong enough to define who they are. So when you start off like that, and now I'm meeting you in 9th grade, right? Sometimes the student self-esteem is so low, because I mean, that's a bigger issue. I don't want to get into that, but just the mental health in our communities that's connected and rooted in low self-esteem, right? So now mommy and daddy don't even know how to help you get there, because they don't even know how to help themselves get there. And here's what I've learned. Parents learn from their students, learn from their children, right? As students, the things that they learn, I have had more parents say to me, like, I never thought about that until he came home, she came home and talked about this or talked about that. I never thought about that. So what I say to people is, if you have not been in these neighborhoods, when you just think about the prison system, and that I was at an event, and a woman that started an organization specifically for 3rd grade African-American males, because of the whole prison pipeline and deciding in 3rd grade that's the kind of jails that you're going to build on that. That's why you need these organizations. That's why you need me. You need the Anna Martinez's. Let us walk along in the village, because we can't afford to have a generation of students with low self-esteem, with mental issues, that don't believe, like, that's not just an ideology, but children really are the future. Like, that's it. We're not going to live another 60, 50 years. Like, we have to help them come along, and have to help them come along with confidence. And if you don't look like them, I'm not asking you to say, you don't have to march in the parade if you don't want to. I would like if you did, but I need you to be compassionate, and I need you to be a safe haven for them. Don't watch riots that happen in the neighborhood that you work in this school, and then come in and talk about phonics the next day and don't even acknowledge it with these students, right? Help be a safe haven for them. Give them a voice. Show them compassion. Compassion is my word this year. It goes a long way, because quite honestly, I have colleagues that don't show me compassion, right? They don't show me compassion. And so the reason why my organization, and there's so many others, are, and let me just add this, stop trying to reinvent the wheel and create new programs and new organizations. Partner with the ones that are right there. Partner with the ones that are right there. It saves you money. It allows you to come together and to bring both resources from both sides. But we have so many programs that start and fail because people just don't want to join forces together. And so that's really important to me.
And I appreciate that. I have 13 nieces and nephews. I want to say 13. And I tell them, I don't want you to be like me. I want you to be better than me, right?
Yes.
And I'm bringing this up because you said prison system. For those of you that don't know, prison, very privatized money-making system. And right now, it gets more money than our basic public schools do. Absolutely. And if we continue at this rate, we will have more well-funded prisons than we do schools, and we will have more Black and brown people in jail than we do professionals helping the economy, changing the world, making the world a better place. So it is these moments, it is these types of organizations and helping as many students of color as possible, and just students in general, to get access to the life that they want to live, the access to careers that are really going to make a difference for themselves, their families, and their world. So it is important that if your school does not have something, even if you have 12% African-American and Latino students, find organizations like Gina's organizations, Make Your Name Great, partner with them, help your high school students get to and through college. Even if you only have 5% African-Americans and the rest of your school is homogeneous, partner with them, because that 5%, it can make a difference. It really can. And it's going to help them get to and through college. Okay. So if you learned one thing from me today, then I did my job. Gina,
you did your job. I learned something. You did your job. You did your job. Thank you for the work that you do. I'm just always happy and excited just to see youth advocates on the front line, not scared to just be a voice for our students. It's so needed now more than ever, and we need to come along and champion for them in any way we possibly. If everybody just did their little small part, it would have a really big effect. You know,
honestly, knowing you're running your organization gives me some hope. So thank you, and please, and educators, until next time.
Have a good one. Thank you for having me.